Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. So today we're going to talk about the difference between warm-up and stretching, and the similarities, because there is some crossover. Basically, first we start with a warm-up. Warm-up means literally what it says, get warm. When we were in Okinawa a couple of years ago with the Ryukoku event, one of the instructors, after we had done our warm-up before his instruction began, said, "Oh, I loved seeing that. I wish we'd have done that back in the day. It would have saved me so many injuries to get warmed up." Understand that at rest, 75% of my blood flow is in my thoracic and head area, maintaining my vital organs, keeping me alive. That's where it's supposed to be, which is why when you get sitting still for too long, your extremities can get cold and you have those cold feet because your blood flow is localized. The idea of a warm up is literally to get that blood flow, increased not only in volume, how much blood you're pumping out with your heart getting active, but also to send that blood flow into the extremities, circulating through your entire body instead of being localized here. And in fact, especially when you're working large body parts in the gym, for example, doing deadlifts or pull-ups, or working your back with barbell rows, or if you're working your chest with chest flies and bench presses and such, that 75% becomes preferential to the working muscle, which is why, for example, if you do a real heavy set and then stand up, you can get lightheaded because the blood flow that was supporting your brain function is now in the muscles, and your brain says, "Whoa, I'm deprived a little bit," to get that heady feel. But when we do a general warm-up or full body circulation, now we get that blood flow to the whole body. We're still maintaining it to the brain and the organs, as opposed to the workout where we're getting muscle localized blood flow just to the muscles. So we want to increase our core body temperature by having more blood pumping, increase my heart rate, more blood pumping, higher body temperature, slightly, not fever level, but say from 97.6 or 98.6 to 98.9. So it will rise slightly, plus you get the increased circulation through the extremities. The value of that is that there are a lot of tissues in your body, specifically the myofascia, the tendons, which are the extension of the myofascia, the ligaments, have very low capillarization. There's very little blood flow, not many capillaries where that oxygen exchange takes place. And so they can dry out and get sore really easily, which is why you will pull a muscle. It's typically going to be more tendon or ligament damage or in the fascia of the muscle than in the muscle fibers themselves. But if we can get blood flow there, we'll increase or decrease the likelihood of pulls, strains, and injuries of that nature. It's similar to the old days before we had these computerized cars, where you had an oil can in the bottom of the car and the oil just sits there. And you had to turn the oil on, turn the engine on, and then the oil would begin to circulate through the engine, and you had to allow the car to warm up. We don't really have to do that anymore with some of today's electric gadgets in the engine that increase that, or even electric engines, of course. But the combustion engine has changed. But in the old days, we had to let that warm up. Our bodies are still old cars. Sorry, people, that's the way it is. And we have to allow that oil, that lubricant, to flow, which is essentially what the blood does when it reaches those less oxygenated, less capillarized tissues, is it lubricates so that our joints can move. So we want to warm up. Number one, increase blood flow. Now, there are two kinds of warm-ups. There's the general warm-up, and then there's the movement-specific warm-up. The general warm-up, as I said, is mostly just to get blood flow to the body. We can do jumping jacks. We can do a variety of versions of jumping jacks. We can change it up and do a bunch of different things. And I'm getting my whole body moving. God bless Jack LaLanne, inventor of the jumping jack. So that's the purpose, is to get my whole body moving, get some blood flow in there. There are a lot of things you can do for that. We can start from the bottom of the body and work up. We can do duck walks across the floor. We can do push-ups, just light. Now, bear in mind, and this is a saying that you'll hear a lot in the gym culture, my max is your warm-up, or your max is my warm-up there. Your max lift is my warm-up. Oh, I did 100 pounds. Good, I can do that 50 times, so I do a couple of those as my warm-up. In warming up, you may get a full workout, depending on your fitness level. So start, if you're training on your own, start with whatever you can tolerate. If 2 push-ups and 5 jumping jacks gets you breathing heavy, great, do that. You're warmed up, get your breath, and then go into the rest of your routine. The general warm-up is a cardiovascular or cardiorespiratory, heart and lung activity. So we're pumping oxygen into the blood from the lungs into the heart, and then the heart is pumping oxygen out into our body and extremities. So again, jumping jacks, anything. I have here in my dojo, I like to use the TRX, and I'll just go through a few light movements, go through maybe 10 low squats, trying not to pull myself up by the handles, and then I'll just come forward and do 5 or 10 push-ups here, and then I can go back and do 5 or 10 rows, and within a very short period of time, I've worked some blood flow into all of my muscle tissues. We can do a similar thing with the kettlebells, going back to the Hojo Undo, where we can start with some kettlebell swings, just nice and light, get my body moving a little bit here. And once my body's moving, and I get that going, then I can do some twisting movements, get my torso rotation going, then I can get down into my legs. And in a very short period of time, I've increased blood flow through my entire body. And I've incorporated a little bit of auxiliary exercise. The difference between warm-up and the Hojo Undo, or the auxiliary exercises, is the intensity level. Intensity in exercise physiology terms means percentage of 1 rep max. So if I can do 100 reps, 5 is a warm-up, 70 is a workout, just to give you a frame of reference. If I can do 10 push-ups, 2 is a warm-up, 7 to 10 is a workout, or an exercise set. So your warm-up should be less, way less than a workout, but it should get your heart and lungs moving a little bit, maybe a little light sweat on your upper lip and your brow. Then you know that I'm heating up my body. That's the sweat indicator. Oh, my body is getting warm. That's the warm-up, okay? This is different from stretching. Stretching's purpose is to increase flexibility. As I said, if I'm not getting a lot of blood flow to my tendons and my ligaments, and I sit down and start to stretch, it's like pulling cold taffy. Before you pull the taffy, you want to heat it up, you want to warm it up. Now you can pull that, you can stretch it. Put a rubber band in the freezer, grab it and pull it, it's going to break. Well, that's my tendons and ligaments. Take that same rubber band, let it sit in a warm room temperature for a minute, and now it's more pliable. You're blowing up a balloon, you pull it out of the package, fresh out of the package, and start to blow, you have a cerebral aneurysm trying to blow that thing up. But if you pull it a few times, stretch the rubber a little bit, it actually warms the fibers of the rubber up, and then you can blow it up much more easily. Same thing is at play when we're warming up our body versus stretching, okay? So stretching is to increase flexibility, warming up is to increase blood flow throughout my extremities and my body. So take a few minutes before every workout to warm up. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll introduce some different concepts on warm-up, specific warm-up versus general warm-up, what different styles of karate may do, how we can apply that to our own Seidokan, and make our warm-ups more efficient. Anybody who's been to an event with Sensei Nix or Sensei Famai, you see very extensive warm-ups, very simple warm-ups, fast movement to slow movement, a lot of variety of possibilities. Some of what you do in warm-up is also going to be contingent on your own workout time. If my class is only an hour long, I don't want to spend more than a quarter of it warming up because I want to get to the instruction portion. If I have an hour and a half or a 2-hour class, then obviously we can do a more extensive warm-up before we begin training. Same in the seminar settings, we typically do a lot of long warm-ups at least 1 or 2 of the sessions, just so we can really get everything moving both generally and specifically to prepare for the movements we're going to do. Okay? It's just a brief introduction on the concept of warm-up versus stretching, and I'll finish with this story. My sons were at a wrestling tournament, and there were 5 or 7 teams, I don't remember, and some were jogging around the mats, and others were shooting singles and doing takedowns and just light rolling around on the mats. And one group ran a couple of laps and then went to their mat and sat and started to do, as we often do before karate, they sat down and they started doing their stretching, and they started going through static stretching. And they would sit and hold and count to 10 or 30 or whatever, and they'd go through the stretch and sit and hold. And as I watched them, I looked at my sons who were getting ready, and I said, that team's going to finish last in this tournament. And they're like, how do you know that? Because they're preparing their bodies to be static while everybody else is preparing their bodies to move. Well, needless to say, I was correct. What a strange concept. Because they were not prepared to move. A pitcher before a game does not stand in the dugout and hold his arm behind him for 3 hours. He goes out, he throws 10 feet, the catcher scoots back, he throws 20 feet, the catcher scoots back, he throws 30 feet. Pretty soon he's throwing 94 feet, and he's throwing it up to speed. First he's throwing light 94, then he starts increasing the speed until his body is specifically warmed up. Then he can go out to the mat. So take that concept into your thinking as you do your own individual training and as you approach your group training in class, and consider how your warm-up is benefiting the workout to come. Until next week, when we'll continue with this concept of warm-ups versus stretching, keep training.